Nossa primeira gravação de 2023. Hoje é uma entrevista internacional. Hoje eu tô aqui com a linda Wrigglesworth. Ela é inglesa, ela é de Londres e ela veio aqui no Brasil para fazer essa entrevista. Ela foi empresária por muitos anos, especialista em roupões chineses, do Império Chinês. E isso fez, por muitos anos, ela trabalhou nessa área, teve uma empresa de muito bem sucedida e fez ela se interessar muito pelo budismo. E hoje ela é uma professora de budismo e ela está aqui para conversar conosco, para trocar ideia do que é meditação, o que não é meditação e muito. Hoje a gravação vai ser muito especial para você que se interessa por esse mundo da mente humana, para você que se interessa por esse mundo do autodesenvolvimento e para você que quer sempre ter melhor qualidade de vida. Então, hoje eu estou aqui com a Linda, ela vai se apresentar e a gente vai trocar muitas ideias. Tenho certeza que você vai amar essa minha gravação. Fica conosco até o final. Hi, Linda!
Hello, Eduardo.
How are you? Did you see? Você vê a energia como é muito diferente? Uma budista, ela tem sempre o lado zen da história. Muito bom.
I think I understand what you said.
That's good. Ela tá falando que ela tá entendendo tudo que eu tô falando. Muito bom. Linda, it's a pleasure to interview you here and to meet you. And I would like to you share first of all who you are, who is Linda, and how you become a meditation teacher.
Yes, well, I think I was fascinated from my Chinese studies because that introduced me to many different faiths, like Taoism and Buddhism and Confucianism, and the one thing I always asked myself was, it's very wonderful to have all the statues and the incense and the flags and the temples, but what did he teach? What did Buddha say? What did Buddha say? And so I started my journey to find the teachings. And of course, the teachings are all in Sanskrit. They're all in a language that we don't understand. So I wanted to try and find a teacher, somebody who could open the door to Buddha's teachings. And I also wanted to understand what happens to us when we die. And it was always something interesting to me because at school we're taught about birth and we're taught about living and living our life, but the class seems to stop at what happens when we die. And I knew Buddha had a understanding, and so I was very curious and I wanted to find what Buddha taught about this. And so the journey began. I was running my life, my gallery, my career, and also starting to study with a group called the Kadampas in London, who had fantastic setup of regular classes where I could go every week and learn. And in the course of doing that, one of the main objectives of Buddhism is to learn meditation. Because when we go in and understand the nature of our mind, we then can understand why meditation is important, and we can understand the complete journey, because it's not just about listening to teachings, although these things are very important to get the intellectual understanding. But what meditation does is it takes you inwards and it takes you into the very nature of your mind, because most of us don't know what our mind is. We can't point to it. We think it's the brain. We think it's, it's some kind of mixture between brain and not brain, and thinking and not thinking, but we can't really describe it. And Buddha was fantastic, because Buddha really watched his mind, and he saw how it influenced everything he did, all his actions. And so that was my journey. So from then, I came to a point where my career was really at the top of its tree. I'd written a book, and I'd become this reputable world expert in my subject. And then I thought, well, maybe it's time now to change and allow my new world to appear. And that was probably the most scariest time of my life, is to let go of something that was so important to every fiber of my being, and sell it all and dissolve it all away, and then sit with a question. Well, now who am I? Who is Linda Wrigglesworth? It was a moment where I really thought, well, I now have to discover this. And then through my studies, my regular weekly studies, kept me in the rhythm, and I started to really feel nourished by the teachings, and nourished by Buddha's teachings, because they made so much practical sense. Because it wasn't really about a religion. It was more a philosophy, and also more about understanding your mind. And when you start to understand your mind, there is so much liberation and joy. You realize there's work to be done, but you can see and experience directly, time on time, year on year, how your mind now is in touch with its real nature, how we are so much more peaceful than what we were, how much our needs and how the information that we receive is computed in the mind, and how the mind can kind of create a completely mistaken understanding, which we believe is true.
Very nice.
So it's a lifelong journey, but ultimately you really do. And I've been 20 years now studying, and now I teach Buddhism, and I teach meditation, and I also am very interested in other ways of coming to understanding the mind. And so I've recently been studying the 3 principles, which was begun by an amazingly humble guy called Sydney Banks, and you can find him on YouTube. And I also was working and learning a little bit about non-duality, where you're working about sort of form and formless, and which one has arisen from which place, and how the world is actually formless, and not the form that we think it is. And so once again it comes back to what Buddha taught as well. And so now it's really interesting to open it up. My core is definitely the teachings of my Buddhist teacher, Geshe Kelsang Gyatso, because the books are so accurate and clear. And Buddha said it first, 2,500 years ago, or a bit more than that now. And it stayed. It's a lineage, that has gone on, through different teachers, to different countries. Like Buddhism in Japan is different to Buddhism in Vietnam, to Buddhism in China, to Buddhism in Thailand, but they all have core understandings, core knowledge.
Oh,
yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Pessoal, vocês estão gostando? Como que tá sendo aí? É muito profundo, eu tenho certeza que essa entrevista vai ser muito profunda e vai trazer muita consciência para você. Uma das perguntas que ela fez ela sair do mundo corporativo e entrar para esse mundo da meditação, de ser professora, é quando ela começou a se perguntar quem eu sou. E você já fez também essa pergunta para você? Quem é você? Essa talvez seja uma pergunta muito interessante para você parar de assistir esse vídeo nesse momento e se perguntar quem eu sou. Acho que essa é uma nas nossas formações, para quem já fez nossas formações, sabe que essa é uma pergunta clássica que a gente pergunta a todo momento. Os 8 dias de treinamento, a gente faz essa pergunta. Quem você é? É muito importante a gente, para as pessoas que querem trazer consciência para a vida, para as pessoas que querem ter mais escolhas na vida, é muito importante a gente trazer esse processo do autoconhecimento e se perguntar quem eu sou. Linda, you were talking about meditation. Can you explain what is meditation in a Kadampa point of view?
Well, there's many different types of meditation, but Buddha taught that you always have an object of meditation. Mm-hmm. And the object of your meditation, to be a qualified meditation, would lead you to a peaceful state of mind, will lead you to joy, will lead you to positive energy and positive direction. Mm-hmm. So any other, and lasting. So our Kadampa meditation, in the sense of Buddha's meditation, because it's the lineage back to Buddha Shakyamuni, it will, the objects of the meditation will take you to a more peaceful place, which eventually you can access when you're not in meditation. So you build a pathway to the very essence of your being, of your mind. And so it's like bringing the future results into the present. So we're training in meditation to become a mind completely mixed with love, a mind completely mixed with patience, a mind that is completely at peace and yet functions efficiently, productively, joyfully, be incredibly successful. So it doesn't take you out of life, it actually steps you into life. So meditation is about training the mind, which is unruly. Our mind is completely unruly. Mm-hmm. It's a wild horse. Mm-hmm. So we need to train it and bring it in so that we eventually unite with the true nature of our mind and we become one with it. And then life is really living, really living. So meditation is about bringing your mind under control, bringing it into a space of virtue that will be a pathway, when realized, a pathway to the true nature of your mind, and then you will flourish. Because all your minds that create disharmony and unhappiness will have dissolved. They won't.
Okay. Okay, great. For instance, if I am anxious or angry or have some anxiety and worried, how I can meditate? Because you said you have to find some object.
Yes.
So give me an example when I'm worried. What's the best way to not be worried? Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting, worry, because worry is completely created. It's a creation of the mind. So the mind gathers information. So, say you were going to plan an event, and you start to think, oh, I've got to get a tent, I've got to get lights, I've got to get the tables, say for a wedding or something, the tables and the chairs, and I've got to get the invitations, and then all of a sudden something, maybe the weather forecast has said torrential rain, yeah? So which we've all been experiencing. So in that moment, the mind grasps onto that negative thought, it may rain. And then the rest of your thinking and working around creating this event is underpinned by the negative, it may rain. And so it may go wrong. Yeah, it may go wrong. And that then starts to create the worry. So the mind, has immense imagination. It can imagine going to the moon. It can create incredible imagination, because everything starts with imagination, yeah? We want to build a house. We first of all imagine it in our mind, don't we? And then we go to an architect, and slowly, and then we get a form, and then slowly the bricks arrive, and eventually we end up with the house that we've imagined. Maybe we've had to change a few things, but in general, we bring our imagination into form. So the worry comes from that the form that we are that we think we're going to create may not be right. So that's why we worry, because we worry about the appearance. And then we never know. The funny thing about worry, I did a whole course on worry one weekend. And the more I said the word worry, the more it became funny, because it's like worry. So, but really, we are worrying about something that we don't even know if it's going to happen, and that is an unruly mind. That is why we need to train our mind in meditation, to draw it back, to stay in the present. Obviously make plans for the future, but, or else, we don't function. So we need to make plans for the future, but we're more in the present. So as things arise, that maybe on the day of the event it rains, we are prepared with umbrellas or covers, we are prepared, but we haven't worried about it, because really most of the time we're worrying about things that actually very often don't even happen, and that can create anxiety as well. We become anxious. And how often do we worry about something and it never happens? So what meditation does is brings you back into alignment with the true nature of your mind. And the very subtle nature of your mind is completely peaceful and formless. So we create form. We create the form of that event by bringing it into, gathering all the conditions together. But we layer it up with worry, and it often comes from our ego, that maybe if it was a disaster when it rained, how would I look? How would I look to others? That I'm not competent, I haven't done a good job. But how can you change the weather? You can't. You have no power to change the weather. So accepting that it may rain, we bring in the things that we can use if it rains, but we don't worry about it. Because when something's happened, you can't change it. It's happened.
So let's see if I understand. So the secret of meditation is to be in the present moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
is to still the mind, to bring it back to its true nature. So we tap into the true nature of our mind and not its gross level, which is just this mind full of thinking and thoughts and random thoughts. You know, you can be completely random, can't you? Because all of a sudden you can find yourself thinking about something that's completely unrelated.
So the true nature is more calm, is not very...
The true nature of our mind is a formless continuum that has no color, shape, but is as expansive as space. So the way to kind of understand this is like the very nature, the very subtle mind is like a canvas, like a movie screen, yeah? And we project onto that movie, onto that screen, yeah? And create the movie. So we have choice. We create a movie that's full of turbulence, full of anger, unhappiness, worry, anxiety, or we create a movie that is joyful, may have difficult moments, but we don't suffer in those moments, yeah? So you have to always ask the question, how do we experience things? Yeah? So we can go to a perfect party, yeah? We can go to a party with our friends, and the following day we all meet up and say, yay, wasn't that a great party? And somebody says, no, I thought it was a terrible party. And another person says, well, I was bored. And I went, but I thought it was great fun. So the question is, where is the true party? Where was that event that was truly fun or truly terrible or truly boring? It was created by your mind imputing and perceiving what was to you boring, what was to the other person terrible, and what was to me fun. But it was created, the party is not outside your mind because it's created by your perception. So it's really fascinating. It's very liberating when you start to realize that although this world appears, how we enjoy it or experience it is completely dependent upon our perception of what we think is going on.
Excellent. What I feel with my friends or my students, when we talk about meditation, they always say, oh, this is very difficult, I don't do meditation, I can't stop my mind, this is really, really impossible for me. So can you give us some tips how we started? Because here people is watching our interview, some people is already a good meditator and some is started or some have no idea. So can you give us some idea how we start to do a meditation? Pessoal, eu estou conversando aqui, tem um papo muito bacana, falando sobre a meditação. E eu percebo entre os meus amigos, entre os alunos, que quando a gente fala de meditação, existe uma resistência. Eu não consigo meditar, não consigo ficar parado, eu não consigo sossegar a minha mente. E a Linda ela vai explicar, vai dar dicas de como ela, como professora, ela vai dar dica para nós, para que a gente possa aproveitar isso e começar esse processo de trazer mais consciência, de trazer mais esse estado de paz interior, de entrar em contato aí com a nossa essência.
So what is it? So meditation. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, we have this, we say we're doing meditation. Well, you don't do meditation. This word doing is an action word, and it means you're doing something with an intellectual understanding. What you're doing in meditation is you're being in meditation. So you are mixing your mind with an object, i.e., say you meditate on patience, because you know that you get angry or you get irritated quickly. Maybe you get very short fuse, and the opponent to anger is patience. So you learn patience. Patience is a mind that that accepts everything. With grace, accepts everything. So it's an accepting mind. So patience isn't gritting your teeth or suppressing the situation. It's accepting that what is appearing is what's appearing, and we can't change it in a way that if we are angry, then the appearance becomes uncomfortable, doesn't it? You know, if you become angry, people step back from you. Everybody else around you goes, oh dear, this person's angry. I think I should go home, or I should step away out the room. I should make a distance. Then the person who's angry sees the world in a scale of, grey, and they're not seeing the beauty of the flower, the rain, they're immersed in this mind that is uncomfortable. And so patience, the training of meditating on patience, is to open the space of possibility for change. Because when you're patient, there's always room to accept. And when you accept, space arises. And from that space, you can make decisions. You can choose to turn left rather than right. You can choose to just sit and breathe for 5 minutes. So a lot of objects of meditation are generally about turning inwards, not going outwards. So we're turning inwards to virtue. We're turning inwards to objects that can only give rise to happiness, stillness, contentment, patience, acceptance, everything that expands the mind. It's very beautiful. Everything that puts you in touch with the true nature of your mind. So when we start meditating, one of the best objects of meditation is meditating on the breath, because we're all breathing. If we weren't breathing, we wouldn't be here. So good thing to have an object that you can take with you. Most of the objects Buddha taught on meditation are minds that are mental awarenesses. So we're not creating a meditation object like a flower, because a flower isn't permanent. The flower will change and die, and so we can't have, there's no stability in anything that's in form. So we meditate on mental awarenesses, mostly. Or we could meditate on a virtuous object, like a statue of Buddha, maybe, that brings us joy. We could meditate on a flower, but it would have to be a flower that always brings us joy. So, because the object of the meditation object only ever brings you to a peaceful, joyful space. Never disturbs your mind. So that's why we meditate on love, on patience, on kindness, cherishing others. Learning the self is very obsessed, and that by cherishing others, we feel good.
Okay, when you say like the good things to start it is
the breath.
The breath.
Yes.
So that has some like inhale, exhale.
It's very simple.
How do you do that?
You basically you close your eyes.
Yes.
You find a posture that's comfortable.
Can be laid down, or you don't recommend?
No, you have to be quite a qualified meditator to be able to meditate lying down, because you go to sleep. It's very natural, because the body is in that state that
you
says,
cross leg or not?
Yeah, most people can't cross legs because they get uncomfortable, because they don't have the flexibility. So you can meditate on a chair, you can meditate on a bench in the park. It's not to do with having a quiet space, though to begin with it's really helpful, because the mind is really distracted. Yeah, it gets very quickly distracted. So if it's a noisy place, somebody running along, children, you're like, and your meditation's over. So we start with the breath. And we find a comfortable posture. We find a fairly quiet place. It's not easy in a city, but we find a quiet place. And then we focus our attention. So we focus our mind on the sensation of the air entering and leaving the tip of the nose. So it's a very specific meditation. So you just breathe, you follow the breath in and you follow the breath out. And you keep your mind as focused as you can, so you don't move from the object. So you maintain that focus, and it's through that concentration that the mind begins to settle and still. And then you'll have a thought. I must go shopping. I must fill the car with petrol. Yeah, must go to the hairdressers, something. But you let those go. You let any thought that's not to do with the object, you let it go. And you return your concentration to the breath. And you do this again and again and again, because it takes time to train the mind. Yeah, it's like a horse. Wild horse, it takes time to train it to eventually you can ride it. So it's the same with the mind. So the breath is a fabulous object. You do 5-10 minutes meditation on the breath every day. Or when you're feeling agitated, you just take yourself to a quiet place, maybe for a tea or a coffee, and you do your breathing meditation.
Excellent. So you said also to meditation you have to have some object in love or patient, and then you explain that the best way to do to start to do the meditation is from the breath. So how I meditate from the breath and think about love, or how I can do that?
So meditation on the breath. So
on the breath.
On the breath. So the object of the meditation is the breath,
Okay.
and only the breath.
Okay. Don't think about love. Don't think about.
Yeah. So every time, it's like the mind is the blue sky,
Okay.
and our thoughts are the clouds.
Okay.
Now, if you focus, if the conditions come together, you focus on a cloud, it can get bigger, yeah?
Okay.
And then the blue sky disappears, yeah?
Okay.
Or you bring all the causes and conditions together for the cloud to change.
Right.
So if the clouds are your thoughts, you add to those thoughts, and eventually you can't find the breath anymore. It's gone, isn't it? Because it's behind the cloud. So, and you can't tap into your mind either, the nature of your mind. You're just now in your gross level of mind, your gross level of thinking. So it's always very important to bring the mind back. So if any thought arises, you literally let it go. You just let it go. And it's the same as if you actually have an uncomfortable state of mind and you're feeling anxious or you're feeling upset about something. If you let it go, you can then have space. Space will arise in your mind to be able to look at it differently, or have the option to look at it differently. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because we get caught up always with the clouds. We're always thinking. And that thinky mind stops us from actually tapping into the truth, the reality, which is this beautiful, spacious nature. So the breath is a perfect meditation tool. It's fantastic. And you can spend your life meditating on the breath. But it's neutral. So it will give you that sense of stillness. It will train the mind to be still. You'll be able to start to taste when the mind is still. You drop out of your head into your heart, which is the home of the root mind. So you drop out of your head into your heart.
Excellent. Que bela aula, hein, pessoal? Vocês estão acompanhando? Se você entrou agora, volta toda a gravação e assista isso, porque realmente é uma super aula sobre meditação, sobre o estado da mente e sobre dicas para você que se interessa por ter qualidade de vida, para você que se interessa em entender mais sobre a meditação e os benefícios. Ela acabou de falar aqui que de 5 a 10 minutos, se você fizer isso todo dia, você já tem grandes benefícios da meditação, né? Tem pessoas que têm a ideia que você precisa ficar 1, 2, 3 horas meditando para ter os resultados. Acabou de falar que 5 a 10 minutos já tem um excelente resultado na sua qualidade de vida. I would like to explain what's the difference between meditation and visualization. Then I think this is for me was similar, exactly the same, but as you explain, becomes different. So can you explain the difference between meditation and visualization?
Well, there's a lot of visualization in meditation, because when you start to have the aspiration to become an enlightened mind, which is a mind that's gone beyond all suffering, and we want to tap into the very nature of our mind. Everybody has that ability to do that, by the way. It's not out of anybody's reach. It's just training the mind, but we're very impatient these days, so we don't take time. But we never know what may ripen, because we never know the hidden conditions that are in our mind that could ripen, and we would make swift progress. Yeah. So there are visualizations. Sometimes we visualize becoming a Buddha. Sometimes we visualize what it would be like to to be an enlightened being, but we understand the qualities of an enlightened being. So it's not a wild imagination, it's not a wild visualization. It's actually based upon very specific visuals, yeah. But in many, and I don't really know too much about other meditations outside of what I teach, but a mind of love, you know, if one understood, firstly, we are the nature of love. We never have to look for love elsewhere. You know, we are love. Because when we're peaceful and content and we bring these minds together, we're naturally loving. It's not like we have to create love. We're naturally kind. When we are content, when we are in a good space, we are naturally more patient. We are naturally more kind. We're naturally loving. And that's really interesting, isn't it? Because we are love, you know, therefore we don't have to make ourselves love. We don't have to create love. It's not a learned tool. So we can visualize love by the feeling that it evokes. So when your mind is feeling love, it's a warm feeling, it's a contented feeling. It comes to feeling, yeah? We come back to feeling. So we always think that feeling comes first and thought comes second. Because the first thing we notice is our feeling, yeah? And we don't think, how did we get that feeling? But actually the feeling was created by our thoughts. Yeah? So visualization is something that we do to lead us to a feeling of contentment, a feeling of love, a feeling of patience. So we're bringing ourselves once again back into presence. So we experience the world that we experience, you know, everything that we see, but we are experiencing it from love, from the feeling it gives us.
Wow, interesting. So the thoughts is before the feeling.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes. Because we think it always, because the first time we notice we are, you know, say unhappy, is because we have this feeling that everything is not right, and it brings up agitation and tightness, and that's the feeling. But actually, what's created that feeling is the thinking before. And that thinking mind keeps us in our gross consciousness, always keeps us on the surface, say of the surface of the ocean, always keeps us bouncing in the waves instead of going deep into the ocean where it's still.
Excellent. Wow. Muito bom. Essa foi novidade para mim. Eu sempre acreditei que nós tínhamos os sentimentos e depois vinha o pensamento, mas a Linda acabou de falar para nós que primeiro são os pensamentos e depois os sentimentos. Não existe sentimentos sem ter primeiro criado na nossa mente esse pensamento. Muito interessante. Linda, to finish our interview, can you explain about the letting go? What is letting go and why we need to letting go? I think this is a very important question.
Well, as I mentioned before, we get very caught up in what Buddha calls gross awareness, which is where we're kind of on the surface with our thinking mind, creating stories, always creating storylines, and then we believe the storyline. And so if something has happened in our life where we feel that we have been hurt, or something, there are many scenarios, we know them because we've experienced them, so our thinking around this, our thoughts gather together and create a story, Now, that story is very subjective because, as we said about the event, the party, not everybody will experience it in the same way. So we start to realize that actually the reality that we are living by through this thinking, through this belief that actually everything is outside of our mind and that person hurt me, we hold on to that storyline. Now, maybe there was a very difficult situation that we find still very painful to experience, to think about. But what we don't understand is that we have created the story around that event. So we have created that it's painful. So we have created I'm hurt. We then bring that into our present life and we hold on to it. We keep it going. 20 years later, we've still got the same story, and therefore it becomes something we impute on something similar. So if we have a difficult relationship and it breaks up and they hurt us, in quotes, the next relationship, we will have the story in the background going, they may hurt me. And so we keep the painful events going, and that then colours our world. They colour our world. But they are absolutely subjective, that they are just a perception of what's gone on. Because, I'll give you an example, Okay. I had a breakup, a very, very, very strong breakup with somebody, and it broke my heart, many years ago. And I was in that moment, I had gathered everything that I felt that person had done and had been, and I had the storyline. And so there was no way I could forgive them. I was traumatized myself. I was completely unhappy, But it was all on the surface of my mind. Everything was just on the surface of my mind. And so whenever I met the potential for another relationship, I thought, oh, they may hurt me, this may happen. So I was bringing the old story into the new moment, from the old moment into the new moment. And I was layering that up. But what, through my practice and my training, and also this person is also a practitioner. So as the years went on, we started to have dialogue about what happened. Very brave, because most of the time when we end a relationship, we put it in a box. It goes in a cupboard and we never want to speak to them again. And we have a view of what happened. We have an idea of what happened and we hold that as true. But as the years went on, we realized that actually what appeared to happen was actually layered with many other many other situations that they were experiencing. They were layering it up with things that had happened to them in the past. I was experiencing, oh, this is the same as what happened last time, da 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 da. And we were both only experiencing the surface, but as we built our friendship back up again, and now he's one of my best friends, so it shows you we can make this transformation by letting go. We started to see that actually what we both thought happened actually didn't happen in the way we thought it did, because we had not seen the deeper levels that were creating the cause for the breakup. And it was nothing to do actually with our true natures. It was nothing to do with the fact that we actually had love for each other. It was to do with the fact that the trauma and the, just the mindsets and the previous events with other relationships we were imputing on the current relationship, and so we were creating, the only thing was for it to break down. And we just realized that actually we were coloring all our future relationships, and of course the present relationship of the two of us together. And so as the years went by, we started to really deeply understand that actually we broke up not for the reasons that appeared.
Wow.
And we let go. So we started to let go of those subtle stories. And eventually we've healed completely our friendship, and we have completely let go of all the pain and the suffering of that time when we did break up. And that just shows you that we never know another person's mind. We never know why a person does what they do. Yeah. And therefore, we can never be sure that what we experience is actually a truth. We can only interpret it to the best of our abilities at the time. But people will always have, something in their life that is the kind of the rumble strip, is the reason actually why something hasn't worked. Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's quite amazing. So that's why we need to let go, because holding on to what we believe actually happened, although we experience it in a gross level, there's many layers underneath. And when we actually, if we spent the time, or we actually maybe we didn't even need to know what the layers were, but we know that there's a sub-layer, a sub-consciousness, a sub-memory that's distorting our moment, our very present moment. And so therefore the story that we think happened is not completely true. And then when we realize that actually the other person was also suffering, then we can turn back to love. We can turn back to forgiveness. We can turn back to being kind to ourselves, because it wasn't necessarily our fault. It was just all those years and years and years of gathering uncomfortable states of mind that eventually all evolved in one event and broke it into pain, into suffering. So once we realize that actually it's a creation of our mind, we can start to let go. Because when we put down that pain and we put down that distorted understanding, we then have the ability to heal and to see that actually the mind is perfect, but it is carries a lot of distortions. Gross conceptual thinking is very distorted. It's very, it just makes up stories, and most of the time it leads us to agitation and uncomfortable states of mind. But when we realize that actually we're holding all these stories from years and years and years and years ago, and we're imputing them on the present situation, we just layer it up, and then it becomes really thick and real, and there's no chance to forgive, there's no chance to heal, because we carry it with us. So that's why letting go, you have to be brave. You have to understand the mind a little more, so to understand its fluidity, its formless nature, and that actually we live an illusion, we live a dream, a hallucination really, that's not based on reality. Although it functions, this is the thing, we don't start saying, oh, well, it doesn't exist and therefore, it doesn't matter. It does matter, because we're in a consciousness that is only at the level we are, so we're not, if we were enlightened, we'd see the true nature of our reality. Yeah. And then we'd have such wisdom, such great wisdom. But yeah, letting go of painful past experiences is a real blessing. And if one can be brave enough to actually start to do that, put it down, let it rest, because holding it and carrying it will never bring us to happiness. It will always bring us back to pain.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Helpful.
Pessoal, encerramos mais uma gravação, mais uma entrevista maravilhosa. E para mim, encerra essa entrevista com algo muito bacana, que é o letting go, que é o deixar ir, né? As minhas lives ano passado inteiro eu falei muito do basta, né? Quantas vezes a gente tem relacionamentos abusivos, quantas vezes a gente tá numa empresa que a gente não gosta, tá fazendo algo que a gente não quer, tem relacionamentos que já não tem mais sentido e a gente segura, a gente não deixa ir, a gente não dá aquele basta, e realmente ela teve uma explicação maravilhosa da importância do deixar ir. E para finalizar, eu também gostei muito dessa frase que ela fala aqui, que nós não temos, a nossa mente ela é fantástica, mas a gente não tem certeza se isso é verdade ou não, porque aquilo que nós interpretamos da nossa mente é na nossa melhor habilidade que a gente tem no momento. Então, tudo que acontece na nossa vida é a interpretação da nossa mente. Então é muito, muito bacana você que está aí, que está nos ouvindo, que se interessa por esse mundo, de ter uma qualidade de vida melhor, de ter mais conexão com a sua mente. Continue estudando, continue nos acompanhando. Esse ano eu vou trazer muitas novidades, muitas entrevistas internacionais, muitas entrevistas nacionais de brasileiros, de estrangeiros, para que você que está aí nos ouvindo possa, de maneira gratuita, possa se beneficiar com esse conteúdo riquíssimo que nós estamos trazendo. So Linda, I'm so grateful for this interview. You really helped me to understand more about worries and meditation and letting go. And thank you so much. And you're very welcome to Brazil. I'm going to take her to the carnival.
Yay! I'm really looking forward.
And and
I want to thank you too, because in our life there's many precious people that have helped us to enhance our wisdom, and of course my Buddhist teacher Geshe Kelsang, but also the wonder of Dr. Stephen Adler, my dear friend of 40 years from the ACT Institute here. You're in very safe hands, and his wisdom is so wonderful that that over those years he's helped me enormously, along with all my other studies. So you're in very good hands.
Thank you so much. Pessoal, um abraço. Você que está nos assistindo, escreva aí o que vocês sentiram, o que vocês acharam dessa entrevista. Escreve aí, se tiver perguntas, pode escrever que a gente vai fazer o melhor para responder todas as perguntas. E você que tem interesse de assuntos diversos, também escreve aqui para a gente saber o que melhor atendê-los. Tá bom? Um grande abraço, fiquem com Deus e até mais.
Bye!